I was born and raised in a very normal family. I lived in my hometown from junior high school to college, and after graduation, I went to work for a food manufacturing company. Then, I married Michael, whom I met at work. At first, he approached me. Michael was my senior at work, and as he taught me various things about his job, he started inviting me out to eat with him. I was also drawn to his reliability, and we began dating soon after. He was very kind to me, taking me to various places on his days off. He seemed to especially like mountain climbing, and often invited me to join him. I wasn't interested at all at first, but as we went together several times, I grew to like mountains. What do you think? Mountains are nice, aren't they? Yeah, it's much nicer than I imagined. We would go out into nature once a week, and it seemed to restore my work-weary soul. We climbed many mountains together and took many pictures. After 3 years of dating, we got married. We were blessed with 2 children, a son named Jack and a daughter named Luna. It was exactly what I wanted, because I had intended to get married by 30 and have 1 boy and 1 girl. The kids were adorable, raising them was enjoyable, and on our days off, we traveled to mountains as a family. It was challenging since I had to balance housework, children, and work, but it was fulfilling. A few years later, when my children were in junior high school and didn't need much attention, my life began to go on a downward spiral. Michael was always tired from work, and we had minimal conversations at home. I had conversations with my daughter, but she was busy hanging around with her classmates. My son was either going through adolescence or a rebellious phase, and he didn't talk to me much anymore. I'd get home from work, cook supper for the family, and clean up once everyone had finished. I went to bed soon afterward, exhausted. On weekends, I was busy with washing and cleaning. The kids spent more time with their friends, and I found myself feeling increasingly lonely. Spent more time with their friends, and Michael slept all day. By the time I noticed, we weren't going out as a family anymore. Monday would arrive in the blink of an eye. As the days went on and on, I sometimes wondered about the purpose of my life. I had no hobbies to begin with, and I was always uneasy, as if my life's purpose was to live like this till the end. When I realized my son had grown up, got a job, and moved to LA. 2 years later, my daughter also started working. Hey Mom, I'm going to UR too. She told me that. To be honest, I wanted my daughter Luna to work in our hometown. But as her parents, we did not have the right to stop her from working in LA. I felt choked up by the prospect of being alone with Michael. Then, one day, I received a call from Chloe, a good friend of mine from school. It's been a while. Why don't we get together? So I decided to meet her. Chloe, who I hadn't seen in a long time, had changed her appearance and appeared to be a different person. In fact, I recently divorced my husband. What? Really? I was taken aback and dropped the fork I was holding. They were such a nice couple. You know, I've been making accessories for a long time as a side business. I started an online store, and it did much better than I expected. I began to make a lot of money, so I quit my job and am now working on my own. I see. That's amazing. I thought this was the reason why she looked so radiant. Chloe, I think you've grown very pretty. It must be because you were doing something you enjoy. When I said so, oh, maybe it's thanks to my boyfriend, she said happily. Friend, are you dating someone? Boyfriend. It was a word I didn't hear anymore from my friends my age. That's right. I recently got one. He's 10 years younger than me, and he's divorced. As someone who has gone through a divorce, we get along well. Of course. As someone who has gone through a divorce, we get along well. I had no idea how much fun being in a relationship with someone who isn't married would be. She had glimmer in her eye. Wow, that sounds so nice. It is. All I've ever done was take care of my husband and kids. Now that the kids are working and out of my hands, I just wanted to enjoy life one more time. How nice. I'm not sure I can live with my husband alone from now on. Then why don't you get a divorce? You are beautiful, so you should not waste your time. You have a long life ahead of you. Divorce? I have thought about it several times, but I've put it off because of my children. I didn't stay with my husband because I loved him. It was for the sake of my children. I envied my friend who had begun a second life and was having the time of her life. After a while, my daughter moved to LA, and I was finally left alone with my husband. We still didn't talk, and I watched my husband silently eating my cooking while watching TV. I wondered why he married this man. I was flipping through a magazine one day when I came across an article about a yoga school. It sounded like it would be beneficial to my health. And since I wasn't getting enough exercise, I figured I'd give it a shot. That's what I thought. Normally, I would find new things troublesome, but this time I decided to give it a try. Soon after that, I bought yoga work and started attending classes from then on. I became hooked on yoga to a degree that surprised even me. At my age, I felt like I had finally found something I could be passionate about. I went to school on my days off and even laid out my mat at home to practice yoga. I hit it off with the instructor, and we became good friends and went out for tea on days other than lessons. My life became more active all of a sudden. I gradually began to think that I wanted to make yoga my career. I studied to become a certified yoga instructor and successfully obtained my certification. I decided to take the plunge and change jobs at the studio I went to. I told Michael about my new job. Then Michael said something surprising. "Val, I didn't know you were doing yoga." I was astonished at Michael's indifference toward me. I had my newly purchased yoga clothing and mat at home, and I did some yoga in the living room. I always went out for yoga on my days off, and I talked to him about it too. He never listened to a word I said. I thought that he was hopeless. I was determined to get a divorce then. I realized there was no way I could live with someone who is uninterested in me. I then handed my husband the divorce papers I had prepared. Let's divorce. Jack and Luna are now independent, and I fulfilled my role as a parent. From now on, I want to live freely. My husband looked surprised, but the next moment, "Okay, I understand." He said so with a blank expression on his face. It was a very simple answer. Well, I knew his reaction would be like this. He didn't love me at all. Please fill it out by the end of the week. I told him so and quickly went to my bedroom to sleep. The next day, I informed my children that we were getting a divorce. I knew they must have recognized that our relationship was in trouble and would not oppose me. That's what I thought. But contrary to my expectations, they both opposed it. Like saying, "Can you live on your own, Mom? Dad doesn't always talk much, but I think he's really a kind person. And as for Lina, no way, Dad can't live without you. He doesn't say anything, but I'm sure he really likes you, Mom." She said so, but I was determined, so I didn't listen. Anyway, I already made up my mind. But, as with that, I hung up the phone. The next 3 days flew by, and it was Friday, the day before I was supposed to file the divorce papers. Lunchtime, what should we do at supper today? I texted Michael, but he didn't reply. Well, if he doesn't answer, it means he doesn't want it. So let's pack while we have time. With that in mind, I packed my stuff into cardboard boxes. I didn't hear from Michael until after 9 or 10 p.m. I was getting worried, so I called his cell phone several times, but the line was disconnected. I wondered what had happened to him. Could it be that he got into an accident? Fear gripped me. I noticed the door to Michael's room was slightly open at the moment, so I walked inside because I was curious. I've not been in Michael's room for years. The moment I opened the door, I screamed out loud. "Oh my God! But what the hell is this?" There were pictures scattered all over the room. They were all photographs of me and my children in the mountains. We were smiling pleasantly in the pictures, not expecting this future. On the desk was a letter. I picked it up and looked at it. It was the letter I had given Michael on his birthday when we were dating. "I love you, Michael. We will always be together." After reading it aloud, I felt pain in my chest. Adams, the words of the letter, a smudge. Could this be due to tears? Could it be that my husband had been crying alone in his room, staring at the pictures and the letter after I told him I was divorcing him? Just as I thought that, a tear rolled down my cheek. Michael, where is he? Perhaps. I took the car keys, got into the car, and headed to a place. I headed to Michael's favorite mountain, which we often visited as a family. We used to go there together while we were still close, since it was a hidden date site with a magnificent night view if you drove there at night. When I arrived at the parking lot, I noticed a man sleeping on a bench in the plaza where the viewing platform was located. As I got closer, I noticed it was Michael. He had fallen asleep on the bench in his suit. 5 or 6 cans of beer had fallen to the bottom of the bench. Michael? He seemed to have fallen asleep after getting drunk. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "What are you doing here? Wake up! Hey, why are you here?" He had a confused look on his face. "Let's go home." Saying that, I forcibly woke Michael up, pulled him to the car, and headed home. Michael started sleeping in the back seat again. While I was driving, I heard a voice from behind me, as if he was talking in his sleep. "No way! I just can't. I'm not getting a divorce." I chuckled and drove straight home. The next day, Michael woke up. How did I get home yesterday? He asked me. You were drunk and sleeping in the mountains, so I drove you home, don't you remember? I remember up until the part where I was drinking in the mountain. This is incredible. Gosh, let's not file for divorce today, and we shall forget about the divorce too. Excuse me? Michael looked at me in surprise. Thank God. I still can't imagine being without you after all this time. There were tears in my husband's eyes. But there's one thing I want you to hear. What is it? From now on, you must take me somewhere once a month. That's the condition for not getting a divorce. Funny. Is that all? Michael looked dumbfounded. I held back the tears that were welling up in my eyes and said, I'm sorry. I realized that all I wanted was to feel your affection. Then, Michael suddenly went to his room, came out with a paper bag and handed it to me. I opened it and found a brand new yoga wear and yoga mat. I'm sorry, I've been so preoccupied with work that I haven't been able to care for you. I was always sleeping around at home. When you told me you wanted a divorce, I felt so bad about everything I've done. But I want you to understand. It's not that I don't love you anymore. I've just been so full of myself. So full of myself. I'm really sorry. And I'll be rooting for you in your new job. I have received a present from Michael in decades. I considered divorce, maybe because I was concerned that my husband did not love me. Thank you. Then we started talking a little more than before. We started talking about where we should go on our monthly date. Luna said, You see, I told you Dad definitely loves you, Mom. She told me proudly. I guess our kids knew my husband better than I did. Yes, that's right. Stretch out your legs and breathe out slowly. Wow, this is relaxing. We've been doing yoga together for a time now, once a week when we don't go out. Michael gets to take one-on-one sessions with his personal instructor. Michael claims that the girls in his office are jealous that he has this opportunity. The two of us are spending happy and peaceful days together. I hope to spend the rest of my life with Michael. That's what I think.